In terms of an on again, off again, good, bad Cinderella story, Minneapolis seems to be the place for rideshare drivers. Once again, they're in the news. What up, folks? Once again, it is indeed your boy Tim with another ride-sharing video. Now, we've talked about Minneapolis drivers fighting a good fight to offset the lackluster pay and wages, lack of transparency, wrongful deactivations, and how they gained some ground only to face a veto from Governor Tim Walz, gained some ground in Minneapolis only to face a fight and pushback from Mayor Fry. But it looks like, once again, the fight is on, and they're on the cusp of perhaps victory. Won't go too far and say it is secure, but it's looking good. Comes from the story titled, Minneapolis may give $150K to new Uber Lyft alternatives. We're talking about other startups that want to step in, since Uber and Lyft stated that if they have to give drivers $1.40 a mile, 51 cents a minute, 80% of the fees and a minimum $5 fare, they're going to lead a whole damn area. You know what I say? Same as the drivers in that area. Let the motherfuckers leave. Let them go if they can't pay a minimum salary to the drivers. Here's how it's going. In less than 2 weeks since the passage of the ordinance, several rideshare companies have expressed eagerness to obtain licensure and begin operations in Minneapolis, the committee said ahead of its Tuesday meeting. So several companies have stepped up and stated, we can provide the service that Uber and Lyft has at the price or the minimum wage drivers are seeking. We can actually do this. Uber and Lyft, billion-dollar companies, suggesting that they can't pay drivers a minimum earnings of $1.40 a mile. But a bunch of startups are like, well, hell yeah, we can do it. Let us do it. In addition to these companies stepping up, look at how Minneapolis is planning on potentially helping them out. Minneapolis officials are considering allocating $150,000 in small business financing for new and emerging rideshare companies. The proposal will be discussed in the Minneapolis Business, Housing, and Zoning Committee meeting on Tuesday. So perhaps you can borrow $150,000, get your startup in play, get drivers running for you, continue to help the city of Minneapolis move, help the commutes take place, pay back your loan, Uber and Lyft, good riddance. Now, my immediate belief is that Uber and Lyft ain't gonna let this shit happen. You know why? Because if Minneapolis can provide drivers with a minimum wage, Uber and Lyft threaten to leave, let's say they do leave, and the $150K in financing loans that is available to startups, let's say some startups do use that, and a couple big startups are successful, and they're able to continue getting folks from point A to point B in Minneapolis without Uber and Lyft, it opens up a huge door for other cities around the country to look at Minneapolis' motto, and that would disgrace Uber and Lyft, is that this big-ass company stated that they had to leave because they couldn't pay drivers $1.40 per mile minimum, and then all these little small companies popped up and showed it could be done with ease. That would make Uber and Lyft look awful. So in my humble opinion, I don't think they're going to leave. I really don't. They don't need this type of publicity. They've put in the fight. If it looks like they've lost so far, they're still trying to buy off Governor Tim Walz and the Mayor Fry of Minneapolis. But if that doesn't work, my guess is they'll come up with some kind of excuse why they decided to stay. Because this doesn't need to get out that they failed at preventing drivers from getting a minimum wage, and other small startups were able to step in and do this shit. So we'll see, but most drivers in the area also do not believe Uber and Lyft are going to leave. But here's what they're telling folks for publicity purposes. We are disappointed the council chose to ignore the data and kick Uber out of the Twin Cities, putting 10,000 people out of work and leaving many stranded. Uber Senior Director of Public Affairs at Uber, Josh Gold, told Patch. Patch is the news media that we're getting this story from. Now, he's suggesting that, they're disappointed that the city council ignored the data and it's going to lead to 10,000 people being out of jobs. No, he is the one that's ignoring the data because the data from the city suggests that his numbers are bullshit and there's enough small startups stating that 10,000 people are not going to be out of work. We can actually give those drivers a job with us and pay them the wages they are seeking. So it is his data that appears to be flawed, but we understand the job of Uber and Lyft is always to provide a sob story. Here's what the city's data determined when they tried to figure out how much drivers in that area are getting paid. The median earning for drivers in the metro area is $13.63, with 25% of drivers in the metro area earning under $10.54 per hour, according to state labor data. Now, what is really awful about this is Governor Tim Walz, the governor of that state, looked at this data, because this is state data coming from the state, the one he governs, that shows drivers are making $13.50 some odd cents on average, and a quarter of them are barely even making a little bit more than $10 an hour, and he vetoed the increase. And it was attempted to stop the one that's going on now as well, when his own data suggests that there are drivers out there making less than $11 an hour. By the way, the cost of living in Minneapolis is pretty damn high. So, make even $13.63 per hour, which his data suggests that was the median income for drivers. That's actually pretty damn low in the metro Minneapolis area. Now, as we stated earlier, in that area, the proposed ordinance change gives drivers $1.40 a mile, 51 cents per minute. Now, for folks who don't drive, understand these numbers are not running simultaneously. You're either earning $1.40 a mile when the damn car is moving, or if you're sitting in traffic doing zero, you're earning 51 cents per minute. Now, also, there is a minimum $5 fare. So anytime you go pick somebody up, the lowest you can get paid is $5. Understand, before this ordinance, plenty trips paid under $3 per mile. So it's not like the drivers are trying to get rich off of this shit. And last but not least, the driver will get 80% of the fees. What is a fee? Cancellation, booking fees, where passengers may reserve an airport trip ahead of time. Let's say you're flying out tomorrow. You want to reserve a car today. I did a news story just a few days ago. Uber and Lyft were charging a fee to reserve trips. 0% was going to drivers. They were giving 0% to drivers. So the idea that Uber has to give the driver 80% of the fees, you damn right they're not going to like that. When they were getting away with 0%. My guess is Uber Team, Uber Health, shared rides, all of this shit, they're charging hidden fees to passengers and passing none of it on to drivers. That's why they're in such a uproar about giving drivers 80% of the fees, because they're charging a lot of fees that drivers are getting 0% of them. Drivers are not even aware these fees are taking place. Did you know? Did any of you folks watching know that when you reserved a ride with Uber or Lyft, that you had to show up in the morning and pick that passenger up? That passenger had been charged an extra fee for reserving that trip that you didn't get shit out of? Most drivers didn't even know that until these stories start making the media. So, yeah, 80% of the fees is like a dagger to the heart of Uber and Lyft, because that's a place where they can make a bunch of money, share none of it with the driver, don't let the passenger know it's even going on, and they can play games with revenue. There's always an excuse for why you can charge a fee. It's rush hour. We charge a $2 rush hour fee. It's 1 a.m. We don't have a lot of drivers. We charge a wee hour in the morning fee. You get high fees all over the damn place. And if you're sharing 0% of them with drivers, It's a real easy way to make revenue in secret. So 80% of the fees is probably one of the biggest issues that Uber and Lyft have a problem with. But nevertheless, shout out to Minneapolis, staying in the game, staying in the fight, convincing the right politicians to give them that 9-3 veto-proof majority with the lower politicians, because the upper level politicians were determined to keep driver pay the way Uber and Lyft wanted it. 2 vetoes from the mayor, 1 veto from the governor. In fact, the governor's veto of ride-sharing increases was the only veto he has ever done his entire time as governor of Minnesota. That's the only veto he has ever did, was vetoing an increase for rideshare driver pay. Look that one up. Tell me that doesn't sound like somebody is getting paid behind the scenes. Nevertheless, shout out to Minnesota. $1.40 a mile if they get it. All of us, with the exception of maybe Seattle, New York, and plus or minus 1 or 2 other markets, all of us make less than that around the country, if not around the world. So if they get it, good for them. It's your boy Tim. Feel free to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.